Everyone, I'm Karen. I'm the LISSA president, and we are hosting Karen Meier for our speaker series. And you can see she works with school media. And thank you for coming here. I'm just going to go ahead and turn it over to her so we can get started. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you. My name is Karen Meier. I am the Director of Library Media Services in Winston-Salem Forsyth County Schools. I'm just going to tell you a little bit about myself. Please feel free to stop me, ask questions, whatever. I have a PowerPoint presentation, but I am very fine with rabbit trails and not following it. It was more just to keep me focused so that I don't ramble. All right. See if we can get it going. Okay. So I just going to talk, they said for me to tell a little bit about my background. So, so my first 2 years of teaching, I do have an elementary education degree from Appalachian State University from a long time ago. My first 2 years of teaching were in a computer lab where I worked very closely with the media coordinators at both schools. I was at 2 different schools. One was a very old school person, one was very innovative, but this is really early influences of what really drew me into school media. During that time, I loved the work that they did. I loved what I did. I loved teaching. I taught computers, and just to kind of age myself, I taught with the Apple IIe computer to where they would make these high-pitched squeals, and our solution was to bang it on the top, and it would stop squealing. So that kind of where I started. But really at that time, I didn't see myself doing that, doing media, even though I was really attracted to it at the time. So then I taught for 7 years, 2 of those years being in the computer lab, but then I taught on grade levels. I've taught 2nd grade, 1st grade, I taught 1st grade reading, I taught 3rd grade for a bit, taught 6th grade math. So I have a wide variety. I did a little stint in ESL in between having my 3 children. When my 3rd child was born, I stayed home for 3.5 years. And it was during that time that I decided I wanted to go back to grad school. And I went to grad school to get a master's in reading, because even at that point, I really didn't know if I could do school media. Is this something that I can do? Am I equipped to do this? Karen Gavigan, I don't know if you know her, she's kind of like become a guru, but she was in her PhD program at the time, and she was in one of my literacy classes. And her final assignment was modified because she was in this doctoral program for LIS rather than the reading. Well, I absolutely loved what she did and was inspired to follow that dream that had kind of tickled my brain for several years. I had thought about it. I remember having a conversation with her saying, I love what you did. I can do that. And she just talked to me and said what a great career it was for her. And literally I called the director at UNCG, the LIS director, at the time, and talked to him, and like the next month I was in the LIS program. So because I had already done all the background work, and I started classes, I started this class in January of that year, and then in August I started with the LIS program and haven't looked back since. So why UNCG? Well, first of all, it's close by. I live in Archdale, so it was 15-20 minute drive for me. I also wanted face-to-face classes. That's why I chose this over the ECU at the time, because they had the face-to-face classes. But I also began with the Outstanding Education Program for Reading. I did a lot of research on local universities for that reading program and was really pleased with that program. So when I switched to the MLIS, I knew that if their education program was so well done, that the MLIS program would be just as strong. So I found that to be absolutely true. Loved UNCG. I feel like UNCG's strong program really rooted me in why libraries exist. The interconnectivity of all libraries, your public, your academic, and your school libraries are all connected, and they all support each other. And then also in the importance of strong school libraries. I really feel like that program really helped me get there and solidified that for me. I feel like I'm going really fast. I'm sorry. I'm a little bit nervous, actually. So just kind of some highlights from my career. My first 4.5 years were at Reedy Fork Elementary in Guilford County. I absolutely loved elementary school, and just thinking about my time there, I loved the students. I loved the age of the students. I loved the creativity, and I'm going to show you what I did with this space. This was one of the highlights of what I did. And they had this great, and this picture is not my picture. Let's see if I can find it. Oh, it took me to the, okay. So I did not take this picture, but the painting on this wall, can you guys see it? See how the library is decorated? Can y'all see it? Okay, thank you for the thumbs up. I did that. I had a parent who was very creative. I can't take credit for coming up with the idea. I just knew I wanted to paint it. It was a brand spanking new library. It's actually 5 different colors. It's purple, blue, yellow, green, and red. But you can kind of see all the way through there. And I've been gone from there for 8 years. So, but I wanted to paint it, but I am not that creative. But I had a parent who was that creative. And so in talking with her, she would volunteer in my library all the time and would shelve books and do all kinds of stuff for me there. But I said, I want to paint. Would you be willing to help me paint? She was like, yeah. So then she came up with this design, and we went kind of on this Lego theme because, you know, what little boys don't love Legos, and girls too. But Legos are just such a popular thing, and they've added like the Superman and this Batman over here. So they added that all there, but it really transformed that space just with, I think it was about 11 gallons of paint. So I used book fair money to pay for it, and just created this space. And I remember we did it over the summer, and when the kids came back that fall, it was just phenomenal, their response. And it just really created this great space that kids just absolutely love to come to. So anyhow, I just wanted to kind of brag about that space because that was it was so much fun. Back over in this corner, you can't really see it, this corner right here. This is like a little reading nook. I used a group of art students from UNCG, and they painted the mural. They designed it and they painted it. And that was another fun thing to watch that come to life and make this space much more kid-friendly than just the bare industrial cream color that they were. So you can do a lot with paint here. You can kind of see it a little better. It's got like a dinosaur. They took some of the curriculum that kids have to know and kind of based it on that. So let's see. All right. So then I moved. I made the strange move. One day I was talking with the girl that was taught in the computer lab, which was adjacent to my media center. And I just mentioned off the cuff to her, I said, you know, someday I'd really like to get some high school experience. I was not unhappy at Reedy Fork Elementary, loved my principal, loved the kids, loved what I was doing, was very, very involved in the school. And the next day I got a phone call from my sister who had worked at Southwest Guilford High School and knew the principal, and he had called her and said, hey, would your sister be ever interested in coming to high school? My media coordinator's retiring. That was the very next day after saying that the day before. So I was like, maybe I should listen. So I interviewed for the job and got it. And my first day at high school, I was absolutely terrified when the kids walked in because we had media services students that were assigned to us that we grade, and they were assistants. But I was there were two senior boys that were assigned to me first block. And when they came in, men walked in, not boys. I don't know what I was expecting, that the kids would be like, to my shoulder or something, but these 6'2" boys walked in, and I was just like, my mind was just blown. And they were great kids. And I ended up loving high school even more than I did elementary school, and didn't think that was possible because I was absolutely terrified that first day. But I absolutely loved high school. I loved, hence I stayed there for 7 years, and was super. I loved my school. I got along well with my principal, got along well with the teachers, collaborated with the teachers. Couldn't say anything better than high school. Loved high school so much, I don't know that I'd ever go back into elementary school because I loved it so much. I loved the research. I loved the level of inquiry with the students. I just loved everything about high school. One of the things that I implemented at Southwest that I'm most proud of is the guided inquiry design. Guided inquiry design is a research model. And if you're not familiar with it, I highly recommend that you become familiar with it if you're going into school libraries. Anyhow, it is like I said, a research model that is just so rooted in research and is backed by 30 years of research in how students search for information. And I just really connected with it, had a couple of teachers that I brought in with me, and we collaborated, and we kind of dove in, and that's just the kind of the way I am. I'm very much the type of person that I'm gonna dive in, and I don't have to have all the information before I dive in. So we dove in, she was the same way. We dove in together, and we learned so much and made such an impact on students through guided inquiry design. And I still preach guided inquiry design to the media coordinators in Winston-Salem Forsyth County Schools, and have done sessions with them and teaching them how to do it. So I'm very much a guided inquiry design, I don't know if prophet's the right word, but a preacher, a guided inquiry design preacher, because I believe in it so much. So then now I'm the Director of Library Media Services for Winston-Salem Forsyth County Schools, and I love this work too. I just love everything about school libraries. I love what they stand for. I love the impact that can be made through school libraries, which is why I've invested the last 12 and a half years of my life in school libraries. And so I just can't say enough about it. I'm very passionate about school libraries and what they do for our student learning. So I'm just going to stop right there and kind of see if anybody has any questions, kind of going through my background or anything. Everybody's really quiet.
How long have you been the director?
I have been here for 1.5 years. So I started in June of 2019. Probably have had the rockiest first year of anything, when the pandemic, but that's okay. I'm very much a person that I roll with change pretty well. So that has served me well in this job as well as all my other positions, because I do roll with change very well. All right. So they had asked me to talk about some of my challenges. Probably some of my biggest challenges that I faced in the school was budgets. At my elementary school, I didn't really have a budget. So I would fight every year to get $500. And this is with a principal that I had a really great relationship with, but being very new to school media at that time, because I was still in my grad school program when I got the position at Reedy Fort, but because of my teaching background, I was able to go ahead and start. And that served me really well because it helped me academically with the students. Like, that was something I didn't have to learn, was how to teach, because I already knew that. But the budgets, it was every year. I think one year, my last year there, I got $1,000. But the challenge with that school was that it was a brand new school. It opened in August of 2007. I started in January of 2008 because the media coordinator that was there had taken another position. So kind of stepped into a brand new school that I didn't have to set up. It was already set up. But the principal very much had the feeling that because it's a new school, it doesn't need money for the school library. So budget was a big time issue. Then, of course, I was on a flexible schedule at Reedy Fork for my first 3.5 years there. And then my last year there, I was on a partial flex schedule. I will say this, first of all, let me stop. Are the 4 of you that are here, all of you in school library programs? Are you either public or academic? Drew, I see you nodding your head. You're muted.
Sorry, I
They're
thought I had the
saying yes.
space bar down properly.
See Heather.
They're saying yes in the chat.
Okay, I can't see the chat.
Okay, I'll keep you up to date. Then I'm public, but I think everyone here is for school.
Okay, great, perfect. Helps me know my audience. I kind of lost my train of thought, but anyhow, one of the biggest challenges that you'll find, whether you're on a fixed schedule or on a flexible schedule with the elementary school, is getting teachers through the door to collaborate. You will work far harder for a flex schedule than you do on a fixed schedule. On a fixed schedule, you do your own thing. You decide what you're teaching, but when you're on a flexible schedule, you're really dependent on those teachers to work with you, and getting them through the door can be very challenging. You have the teachers who I call island teachers. Those are the teachers who just aren't interested in coming outside of their doors. They're going to teach their kids and their kids only. They don't want to share them with you, and it's nothing against you. You cannot take it personally. They are just, these are mine. I'm responsible for them, and I don't trust anybody else to do anything with them. So you've got those island teachers, and then you've got the teachers who are just so darn busy that they feel like it's extra work. So you have to really sell yourself and sell your services, and so it's creating relationships with them and going to them and offering them, hey, let me work with you. Let me show you what I can do. I'm not creating more work. I'm trying to take work off of you. So convincing them of that it can be challenging, especially at the elementary level where they are so busy and they really don't get much planning time to do the collaboration, especially if you're on even a fixed partial fix. They're just so busy. And right now with remote teaching, they're even more busy than what they were before. Another challenge that I faced was after 4 years of being at the high school, the principal that had hired me retired. And the new admin, now mind you, there was 2 of us at the high school, 2 media coordinators at the high school. So when I left, the high school was 1,600. It was about 1,400 when I got there. So it was a growing population. This new admin came in and decided that went to the curriculum facilitator and said, I need one of these media coordinators to be the test coordinator. Which one would do a better job? And the curriculum facilitator said, Karen. So I got to be the test coordinator that year, and I did a good job, of course. I don't know how to do anything less than my best on stuff like that. But I spent the entire year mad that I had a master's degree to count test books. But I did a good job, and I'll be honest with you, I learned a lot from it. I learned a lot about some inner structure within the school. I learned a lot about leadership through that year, but it was not a happy year for me. I really, really struggled through that year. And that principal ended up leaving in January of that year. And the principal who ended up being the interim principal had been an AP at the school for the whole time I had been there. And I had a great relationship with him. So always develop good relationships with all your principals. And so the next year, they cut one of our positions, and he went to bat to try to keep both of us, but didn't win. But because of that, I was never going to have to do test coordinator. Of course, I had already told them too that if I had to do it again, I would quit. So because I didn't get to be the test coordinator. I didn't get to be a media coordinator, which was where my heart was. But somehow through that year, I earned my national board. Between the year before and this year, I earned my national board that same year. I had about a 6-week period of time where I was not test coordinator in the spring, and I really worked on my national boards at that time and somehow got it. I still look back and go, I don't know how I did that. But anyhow, so those were some of my challenges that I faced as a school media coordinator. So just some kind of advice. I hate to call it advice, but in looking at some of the questions that were asked, it said, what were some of the recommendations? So these are more like recommendations than advice. So the first is to learn your craft. I would say read widely in the materials. I know that sounds like a duh question, but I have had media coordinators that I have worked with in Winston-Salem that have told their principal, I don't really read children's literature. How can you be a school librarian if you're not reading what your kids are reading? You can't recommend what you don't know about. You don't have to read the entire series of unfortunate events to understand what that series is about. Read the first one. You don't have to read the whole Ranger's Apprentice. Read the first one, although I did end up reading both of those series. But you want to get an idea. Even if Diary of a Wimpy Kid is not your thing, read a Diary of the Wimpy Kid book. If you don't like Junie B. Jones, read a Junie B. Jones. Read outside of what is in your comfort zone. If you're going to be teaching middle and high school, read some LGBTQ titles, even if they make you uncomfortable. You have to read what your kids are going to want to read in order to be able to speak with those students knowledgeably about it. You've got to get out of your own comfort zone and kind of get outside of yourself. I've read some really great books that I would have never picked up had I not been in a high school library. I never will forget reading Looking for Alaska by John Green. It was my first YA lit that I've read. Is anybody familiar with that book? Well, it's got the F word about 4 times on every page. And coming from elementary school, I thought I was going to fall out of my chair reading that book. Come to find out, this is pretty common in young adult literature for there to be some language in it. And I, just come to kind of see what's out there and what students are reading and not judging the book based on, my preconceived ideas of what a young adult literature should be, because it's not about me, it's about the students. And you want to know, if you're, read those diverse titles, read the Hate You Give, read those books that challenge your thoughts and challenge your beliefs on certain issues. And that's okay, because we want kids. You're going to have kids that aren't coming from the same background that you are, and you need to be able to connect with them. And if you're not reading what they're reading, you cannot connect with them. You want to become an expert in those ISTE and ASL standards for learners. Go on the site, become real familiar with them. You're going to be using them, you're going to be teaching them. You want to familiarize yourself with the content area standards. I would recommend, especially if you're in middle and high, start with those ELA standards. And I want you always, in everything you do, in your collection development, in your lesson planning, in your collaboration, how can you support those standards in your work as a school librarian? Because everything you do comes down to how is what I'm doing impacting student learning. That includes your collection development plan. When you're planning of how you're going to build this collection, how is my collection going to impact student learning? So always kind of keep that in mind. Know the evaluation rubric for school library media coordinators. If you're in North Carolina, make sure you know that. And think and talk to people, talk to other media coordinators. If there's an area that you're not sure how you would even meet proficient, talk to them. Talk to your director. Talk to Tammy Brewer. Tammy Brewer is one of the best. She knows that evaluation rubric up one side and down the other, and so that you know what is being expected of you as a media coordinator. I recommend to read articles and online blogs from experts in the field. Knowledge Quest, if you're not an AASL member, I highly recommend that you invest in being an AASL member. Knowledge Quest is the magazine or journal that comes with it. That's the way you're going to keep up with what is the trending issues and things that are being addressed in the school library field. So make sure that you're reading that Knowledge Quest. If you don't have, you can always find those online through the NC Wise Owl website. They do. I don't know if the most current one is available or if it's like an issue behind. And then I'm just recommending a couple of people who are really active. Shannon McClintock Miller, and I'll share this presentation with you. I have it linked. Shannon McClintock Miller, she's a school librarian out of Iowa. She's phenomenal. She's also the one that does the Future Ready librarian. If you're not familiar with the Future Ready library movement, I do a Google search on that too. Lots of great information there. But Shannon McClintock Miller is the one who kind of I don't know what the word is. She's like a library leader through the Future Ready, because there's a whole movement with Future Ready schools and the Future Ready libraries. And then Jennifer Lagarde, she's also another really powerful voice. She does a blog. She recently wrote a book with another fella called Fact versus Fiction. It's a couple of years old now, but I think it published in late 2018 or early 2019, but a fabulous book on teaching kids about how to sort out what fake news is, and how that fact versus fiction, and how to really approach that with students in more than just this is the crap method and this is how we evaluate this website. So it takes it a step deeper. So I again linked to her blog. Very highly recommend Jennifer Lagarde's work. Then again, keep up with the latest trends and discussions. I do know that the Future Ready librarians, they do have a Facebook page. I recommend joining that. Get lots of ideas. You can put ideas out there. If you're not sure how to do something, put a question out there and you'll have answers within minutes. All right, so then the job, that was another question. Anybody want to, please feel free to stop me if you have questions. So was asking about interviews, some of the questions. So getting your first job. So when I've sat in on interviews, these are kind of the things that have stood out to me is, first of all, know the school you're interviewing. Don't show up to a school interview and you don't know what that population is. You don't know, there's the school report cards. Go look up their school report cards. Do your research on that school. Where are they located? What kind of population do they have? Have they struggled? Like I sat in an interview this past spring, actually it was in the summer, and it was one of our most highly impacted schools. Used to be the lowest school in the state, and it was a restart school, and the person sat in the interview and didn't know anything about the school. Didn't know that the population was 99.9% African American. Didn't know that the school struggled as much with their grades. It would have all of that information would have shown up. So when you show up and you don't know the school, as an interviewer, that tells me that you're really not interested. What I think, they're really not interested at this school. So know that school, know it. There's just no excuse. Do some, pull up their website, see what you can see. Who's the principal? Who's the, and in your interview. Well, while I was, and this was the girl that finally got the job. I remember her talking about a question. She says, well, when I was pursuing the website, I found blah, blah, blah. And she could speak very knowledgeably about that school. I cannot speak enough on know your school. Dress professionally, even in the virtual interview, we had one person show up with wet hair. that does not reflect very well on you. You're going to show up with wet hair to an interview, even if it's virtual. How are you going to show up to school? Especially when it's at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And then also know your why. Why do you want to be a media coordinator? Why do you want to be a media coordinator at that particular school? Think about what that school brings to you. I know a lot of times you're just applying because you want a job. Don't say that in an interview. Don't say, well, I just really want a job. They want to know why you want to be. What about that particular school attracts you? Even if it's not the best place that you want to be, that you really want to be in another school, what is it about that school that you would be happy about? Why would you be happy at school? And also, I didn't put this on there. What are you bringing to the table? What are you bringing to this job, to this school, to where you're going to enhance the student learning at that school? So I'm just going to stop there. Any questions about the interview process? I've done lots and lots of interviews over the last year and a half for media coordinators. Any questions that you have? Is there anything coming up in the chat?
Not yet. Feel free to unmute yourself if you would like to ask a question, or we can just give you a second to type. Sometimes it takes a little bit to.
Well, I'll keep going and I can come back. All right, so on the job, once you get your first job or any job, is that one of the key things that you're going to want to do is to build great relationships with your principal, your AP, your instructional facilitators, sometimes called curriculum facilitators. I think in some districts they're called lead teachers. Build great relationships with those teachers, the custodians. A lot of people, you want to ignore the custodians, but your custodians can become your best friend. Oh, you need those 20 tables moved in here? Let me help you. Make sure that you're good to your custodians, because you want your space to be well cleaned as well. Your financial secretaries, those are your treasurers. You want to make sure that you have great relationships with those. Really, everybody in the building you want to try to maintain, but these are the people that you want to make sure that you're especially very intentional about your relationships with those people. I also recommend to collaborate with other school librarians, make connections with other school librarians who are doing something similar, that are in the same grade level, but also ones that are in another grade level that may have experience in the grade level you're working. But they will be your best allies. You are often alone in a media coordinator. That's just the nature of our jobs. And your other school librarians, they're the ones that can help you troubleshoot problems that you're having. They can help you come up with lesson plans when you're struggling. They can help you brainstorm how to collaborate with teachers or how to bring teachers in. They're also the ones that can tell you how to handle classroom management. I had a school librarian that I mentored when I was at Southwest. I was still in the field, but she had worked with me at the high school, and she went to work at an elementary school. Well, she had never worked with elementary school kids, and kindergarten about did her in the first week of school. Like, she called me crying her eyes out, just boo-hooing, because she said it was like herding cats. Like, the kids wouldn't sit down, and she was like, I'm never going to survive. And I just laughed, because kindergarten's like that. Like, you're breaking them into school. They don't know school. So, I was able to comfort her and say, okay, let's come up with some ideas of how you can manage these kindergarten classrooms when they come in. And she's still an elementary librarian, and that was like 4 years ago. So she survived. But but building those relationships with other school librarians are important in making sure that you can survive what can feel unsurvivable at times. And then one thing, I say bring solutions, not problems. I'm not saying don't ever go to your principal with a problem. I'm saying, and I tell my media coordinators this now all the time, problem solve that problem before you go to your principal. And don't principals are, especially now, are so overwhelmed with all the problems that they have to try to solve. And when you go to them and just tell them about all your problems, you're not happy with this teacher, or you're not happy with your schedule, and you don't like this and you don't like that, or here's this problem, here's that problem, they can tend to see you as whining, and that doesn't help build your relationship. But if you come to them with a sincere problem, but you've troubleshooted and you've created a solution, even if they don't choose to go with your solution, they know that you have critically thought about this problem and critically thought about a solution to this problem, so that you're not just bringing them problems. Be that problem solver. That's what they want. They want people who can solve problems. And like I said, even if they don't go with your solution, they see that you have thought this through, that it's not, I'm just not coming to just whine. And I'll give you an example of this. So my last year at Southwest High School, I had students I was by myself. I did not have an assistant, school of 1,600 kids. And I had students that were assigned to me, 2 to 3 to 4 students every block, on top of online students that were in the library at all times. So from the time my doors opened at 8:15 till they closed at 3:45 in the afternoon, every single day, I had students that I was responsible for all day, every day. So if I went to the bathroom, I was leaving high school students unsupervised. I was not happy with this. I was wore out because I was constantly, I'm not one that could go sit in my office while there were students in my library. Teenagers have to be supervised at all times, because unsupervised teenagers, even good kids, will do dumb things. So always kind of keep that in mind if you're working with teenagers. So I always had to have them supervised. But so my first 6 weeks of school, I was so very, very angry at my principal, because I just knew he should know. He knows I don't have anybody to help me, and he knows that I didn't, but he really didn't. He was so focused on everything else. But I was so upset that I couldn't even talk to him about it. So when I finally got calmed down enough to talk to him about it, because if you're angry, don't talk. Don't write an email. Don't do anything. Don't send angry emails to your principals. It does not build relationships. It will tear down relationships. So when I finally got settled down enough where I realized, maybe he really doesn't know. He's really not trying to ignore me. Now, mind you, I had a great relationship with this man. I'd worked with him for 6 years, great relationship with him. When I finally got down, I had come up with a solution for that. I wanted to shift some kids and get have a planning period during second block. And so I finally emailed him and told him what I was dealing with and how exhausted it made me. I was honest with him, and that I wasn't having time to, address technology issues. I wasn't having time to work on the website like I needed to. And like I told him all that I was dealing with. But then I had a solution. This is my suggestion of what I would like to see done. I didn't hear back from him for like a week. Well, then I just got pissed. I'll just be honest with you. I got really upset with him. And then out of the blue, I got an email with where he had problem solved with the admin team and came up with a different solution to where the subs, when they were on planning, would come and they would relieve me. So while it wasn't consistent, some days I'd have 3 subs that showed up when I only need 1, and other days I wouldn't have any, but it provided me that relief to go work on the website and to go check technology issues, because I wasn't always supervising kids. So like I said, go with solutions, not problems. And again, when you're on the job, know your why. Why are you there? Why are you doing what you're doing? If you're not passionate about it, why are you there? Our students need passionate educators. They need people who are passionate about the power of a strong school library. Any questions? Did any questions pop up in?
No questions in the chat yet.
Okay. feel like I'm just moving along. All right, so then another thing is becoming a leader. They were like, how, for those of you who are interested in becoming a leader, so just know that the very first thing on the rubric, the very first section on the rubric for your evaluation says, school library media coordinators are leaders in their school. So school librarians are expected to be leaders in your school. That's part of your job description. So at that school level, you want to make sure you're part of that school improvement team or that leadership team. You always want to make sure that you're bringing something to the table. I know when you're new in the career, you may not have as much to bring to the table. So sit and listen and soak up and talk to other media coordinators, find out what they're doing, but always try to bring something to the table. Volunteer to head up literacy initiatives. And be knowledgeable about your school data and how your work impacts it. What you're doing, always know. And then I know to say this is to just talk and keep on talking. Keep sending your message, have your elevator speech ready, and just keep talking how what you do impacts students. This is what I do, this is how it impacts, this is what I do, this is how it impacts. Because that, when, you know, they may get tired of hearing you, but they will always know how you make an impact. And then beyond school. So again, listen to and read from experts in the field. Become active in the organizations. Is there a local school library media association? I know Guilford County has the Guilford Association of School Librarians. Winston-Salem has the Forsyth School Media Association. I don't know that all districts have that, but if they do, you know, join. The North Carolina School Library Association, I definitely, it's supposed to be North Carolina School Library Media Association. It's NCSLMA. Join that one and go to their conferences. I highly recommend that American Association of School Librarians. That's our national association that really gives you a clue or an idea of what's going on nationally with school libraries. Some of what we deal with here in North Carolina, they're dealing with all the way in Washington State. So within that, so with those organizations, volunteer to be on a grant or award committees. I've served on several award committees for AASL, and it's really neat to be part of, you know, these national awards that are given. And all you have a form, and I actually linked it here. There's a form that you fill out and you tell them what you're interested in doing. And I do that every couple of years. And I've been on 3 or 4 different award committees that has just been, and I actually led one of them. So it was really cool to be a part of that. And I know the first time I was on an award committee, I thought, I had only been in the high school for 2 or 3 years, and I thought, what am I bringing to the table? And I realized through discussions with some really strong people, Hilda Weisberg, some other really big names in school library, that you start getting to know these people and realize that, you know, the expert was once a beginner. You've heard that before. You got to start somewhere, and you always bring something to the table, and you just speak what you see. And I found that, you know, I really did have something to bring to the table, and I really could participate in these national discussions that were so intimidating to me at first. But just get in, dive in, and do it. Because every time you do it, you learn more, and you learn more about how connected we really are. And then again, go to the conferences. The NCSLMA, this one was, I didn't really much like the whole online thing. If we can go face-to-face next year, that'll be better. ASL, I went to ASL last fall, which seems like a bazillion years ago. It was in Louisville. Loved it. I learned so much. The 2021 one is in Utah. I am planning to go as long as we can fly, and I'm not going to feel like I'm going to, get some dreadful disease on the airplane. But also NC TIES, which is the North Carolina Technology and Education. So much of what school library media does is connected to technology. So you need to make sure that you're staying up to date with technology. So that's all I had. I did want to just talk about this Libraries Transform. I don't know if any of you have seen it. This was a campaign by ALA that I just absolutely love. You can buy these in posters, and you can also create these these are all my whys. Why do I do what I do? Because librarians believe everyone counts, because books show us every color of the rainbow. And I just love this Libraries Transform movement. If you just Google search ALA Libraries Transform, you'll find all kinds of these little things that you can download, this initiative. I have these scattered around in our Instructional Resource Center, which is kind of like our district library. But school libraries do so much. We I think, have one of the most important jobs in the school. A lot of weight on our shoulders because the impact that we can make. And we touch one of the few jobs in the school where you touch every single student. And what you do matters. So, any questions or?
I have a question that so when you were talking about the awards, I wanted to know, are you willing to share what committees you've been on?
Yes, and I was on the Miss Honey, Roald Dahl Miss Honey Social Justice Award one, and then on the Ruth Tour, I've done the Roald Dahl one twice. And then I also did the Ruth Tour grant for Strong Public School Libraries, or Strong School Libraries. Is it public school? That was the one where that was my first one that I did at the national level. And that one I was terrified on, because there were like these people who were like 30-year vets and they had written books. I was like, oh my God, what can I bring to the table? And there was like 5 of us on that committee. And I was like, hey, so I just spoke up. I just stepped out, and it was a call. So it wasn't even Zoom wasn't yet a thing. This is 5 or 6 years ago. So we didn't do it through Zoom. We did it through a conference call. And it was the inaugural year of that award. So during that, we were developing the rubric for how we were going to grade them and how we were going to decide for future. So that was really cool to be a part of that. And then the next year, they asked me to chair that committee. So I chaired that committee, and that was again really cool. And then the year that I chaired it, a girl from North Carolina won, so that was even better. So, and then I've also in NCSLMA, I have been the chair of the High School Battle of the Books Committee for about 4 or 5 years now. I chaired it in Guilford County. The book selection committee at that time, before it became an NCSLMA sponsored event. So that's been fun as well. There again, and I tell people this all the time, I just make it up as I go. You just make it up as you go and do the best you can. So any other questions?
I think we're kind of quiet tonight.
I know, very quiet tonight.
I have a question for you.
Sure.
So how do you differentiate between being the instructional technologist and being an informational technologist, especially when you have these other things you have to, fulfill as well? So how do you kind of balance the two out?
So that's definitely a challenge and a great question. So technology and so when you're saying instructional technology, technologists. You're talking about the instructional side of technology, not the repair side. Am I correct on that?
Yes.
Okay. So instructional technology is definitely an integral part of what you do. And if you look at the instructional technology role, their rubric compared to the school library media coordinator rubric, they're very, very, very similar. One of the biggest things that is the difference is your collection management. Your collection and resource management is one of the biggest differences. So balancing that, to get to your question, balancing that is one of the greatest challenges that some people have. And it really depends on how strong you are in instructional technology. You know, as a media coordinator, you should always seek to incorporate that technology in providing PD for people, for your teachers. That's part of what you do. But you're also, keep in mind that through your instructional technology, you can incorporate those informational literacy skills because they really go hand in hand. Does that make sense? It's really a blending of the two, not just I'm going to do one or the other. You have to be able to seamlessly blend them and incorporate both. Right now, I'll be honest with you, my middle and high school folks are much more on the instructional technology side than they are on the information literacy side, but that's not normally the case. This is just because we're in this pandemic situation where our middle and high school students are still on remote learning. Did that answer your question, Kendrick?
That did. That was very, very. The reason I asked that because in my internship now, my media specialist, she'll tell me that there are times when she doesn't have enough time and she can just get through the door and she's bombarded with all these technological based questions, and she has her own agenda she has to attend to. And she said it gets really hard sometimes.
It does. It does. I'm not gonna lie. It does. It can be challenging. And it really, I know in Winston-Salem, they hired part-time instructional technology facilitators at the elementary and middle schools, but not the high schools, interestingly enough, because
Wow.
yeah, well, the thought is that the high school teachers have it, but you know, the media coordinators have had to kind of pick up a lot of that slack, but that has been really helpful. And what I keep telling media coordinators is, you know, even though we have the ITFs, you need to be, they're only there half time.
Right.
Full time. So that ITF needs to be your best friend, and you need to work collaboratively and in tandem, not in opposition to each other. So that's somebody that you need to have a great relationship with. Also, there are districts in this state that sometimes have to make the decision between having an ITF or having a media coordinator.
Mm-hmm.
So if the media coordinators are not providing that instructional technology needs, or not providing for those needs, then they will go with the ITF, and then the students really suffer, because then you have unmanned libraries, which are never good for students. So
in a sense, you kind of have to be at the tip top of your game, or it's easy to be replaced in a sense.
Well, it can be. Well, when they start making budgetary decisions, yeah, you want to make sure that you are establishing yourself as indispensable in that school.
Okay. Awesome.
You don't want them to think. You want your principal to fight for you. If you're being cut for whatever reason, like when they cut two of the media coordinators, when there were two of us at the high school and they cut one, the county came in and said, oh, we're cutting all second media coordinators. Principals did not have a say in it. My principal fought for me. And because what was going to happen is that I was going to have to leave because I didn't have seniority. Mm-hmm. And he didn't really want the other girl. I won't get into that, but he didn't want the other girl. He wanted to keep me, but he fought for me. He was willing to pay for both of us to keep me. That's and I'm really not trying to brag. That sounds really braggy. I'm really not trying to brag, but you want to create a relationship and build those relationships with your teachers to where they feel like they can't do what they do without you in that building.
Okay, and that makes sense. 'Cause that's the same thing I've been told from the media specialist I'm interning with now. So thank you for that.
May I ask where you're interning?
Yes, I'm in Harrisburg Elementary School in Lancaster County.
Okay, well, great.
But thank you so much, though.
You're welcome. Anybody else have any other questions? I feel like I've just rambled on and on. Oh my, is it really 6:55? Oh, Lord.
Just have a lot of experience to share.
Okay.
It's not rambling. It was very beneficial.
Yes,
I
I
told-
agree.
I told Tammy Brewer, I said, you know, I'm going to talk for like 10 minutes and not have enough to say. Well, I appreciate you guys listening to me. I encourage you to keep up the work. And being a school media coordinator is not an easy job, but it is one of the most rewarding. It has been very rewarding for me, learning. And I think that when you do it, like, I don't know, it's very fulfilling. Very fulfilling. Be passionate about it, though. Our kids need you to be passionate about it. If you can't be passionate about it, you haven't found your thing. And not trying to discourage anybody, but our students don't have time for you to not be passionate. If you're passionate, your newness and everything is okay. You can learn. But if you're not passionate, we can't teach passion. We can teach you how to handle the Destiny Library Manager, and we can teach you how to do a collection development plan, but we cannot teach you how to love students, and we cannot teach you how to be passionate. That is something you just have to have within yourself. So, Karen, I'll stop talking now.
Thank you so much, Karen.
Listening to me.
It was great to have you here tonight, and we hope that you have a good holiday season.
All right, you too. Thank you, guys.
Bye.